We are the wise and wicked crones. Got no time for lies, no time for casting stones. Wise and wicked, no time for fears or prevarications. Wise and wicked, gonna rise among the nations. Crones are gonna spread our wisdom around the nations. We are the wise and wicked crones. Wise and wicked crones.
Well,
Hello, hello, hello.
how are you?
I am well. How are you?
Hey, I'm okay today. We could not be in two more different places right now on the planet.
Because I am in Mexico.
And I am still at home in Markham, and you can't tell by the brightness behind me, but it was supposed to snow today, which I was really excited about because I absolutely love snow and I absolutely love walking my dogs in the snow.
Yeah.
But it's 1 degree Celsius, so we are getting that kind of rain nonsense. So it's
Yeah.
going to be heavy on the tea and coffee day. And even though I limit carbs, I think I might be carbo loading today.
Well, I've had to blur my background because there's just no easy place to set up in our little apartment thingy, and so it's kind of like, oh, I'll just blur it, and then everything can be where it is. So, but I notice my hands look weird when I move them. So,
They're
anyway,
magic. They're
they're
magical.
magic. Oh, well, I should say welcome. And before we get going any further, I am going to read our land acknowledgement, which is we acknowledge that the land we meet on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Attawandaron, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples, and now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Also, we acknowledge that Mexico is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mayan, Zapotec, and Mixtec peoples, and now home to 89 recognized Indigenous languages and peoples. So, and I am Peggy Margarett. I am trying to think of 3 things to sum me up. So, I am a spiritual person. I am a creative person. I am a kind and loving person who loves to sing and write and hang out with friends and family.
Wonderful. And my name is Leea Nutson. I am a widow. I'm a warrior. I'm a political wonk. I'm an avid knitter. I'm a grandmother. I'm a mother to many children, including 2 fur babies who are lounging on my window seat right now. Um, and I love yoga, meditating, working out. I love to read. I love to cook. And I love to drink wine. I do indeed. So, our mission statement combined, Peggy and I have accumulated over a century of learning and life experiences. Our mission is to bring you thought provoking, interesting, and often humorous wisdom that will enhance your life and enlighten your spirit. Nothing is sacred. This is a frank look at life and an open space for discussion, and we welcome you into our worlds.
We absolutely do. And if something resonates with you, please like and subscribe. If something doesn't resonate with you, just move right on. Also, please know that this is intended for entertainment and information. It is not legal advice of any kind or health advice of any kind. If you are looking for something like that, that you're inspired by something you hear, please go check out a professional in the appropriate field. There we go. And we like to start off with a an oracle card. So just to see if it will connect, well, it will connect with our topic of the this one's jumping of the podcast, and we have number 2. Whoops, the High Priestess. So this is funny. High Priestess is about balance. It is about the spiritual and the physical balancing out. It's like twos are about balance. And so she is the strongest thing about Balance You Can. Her passion is combined with her intellect, and it's really appropriate for today because we wanted to talk about stress. Not because we wanted to talk about stress, but because we've both had a lot of stress over the last few months, and we've come up with a few ideas of what to help, how to
This
help
is for
when that's going on. But it's been really stressful, right? Like the last 4 months, 5 months.
yeah. Well, Christmas in itself is inherently stressful if you celebrate Christmas, holiday season, start of the new year, all those things. And then you add other, things that are in there that are out of your control, like family issues, family health issues. So there are many, many things contributing to stress. In my particular case, I always worry about my daughter. We almost lost her 14 years ago. She had a massive bowel obstruction and had to have complete bowel reconstruction. So ever since then, I stress about her gut situation. She tends to bloat, and I'm forever listening to her belly and so on and so forth. And I've requested an ultrasound, which was scheduled last fall for this coming June. So, yeah. And yeah, I'm not kidding you. And the other thing too, she only has one functioning kidney. So anytime that I'm sensing there may be an issue going on, like that's stressful. So that's taken me 3 weeks to deal with that. So that's stress. I worry about my daughter. And then right now, we've got a little bit of political unrest going on in Canada. Oh, not really. It's just it's kind of ridiculous unrest. So I'm not going to get into the whole thing about it. But because I'm really involved in politics provincially, I have a lot of responsibility. And this not knowing what's going to happen provincially is weighing heavily on my soul because usually what happens is um, the current government in Ontario has a mandate to continue until June 2026, but they're playing political games and they're wanting to call an election early. So that's just the
Mhm.
short bit of it. But the not knowing is really stressful for people who are political strategists and for people who, are involved in political campaigns. And it's going to be my sixth or seventh political campaign that I'm going to be involved with. So
Right,
that's
right.
causing me a lot of stress. The
Yeah.
not the campaign, and honestly, it's not even the politics. It's this making us dangle and doing this dangling dance that I just
And
people say,
I think that goes across the board. Whenever we don't know something, it's the worst. When you're waiting for a health diagnosis, when you're waiting for treatment, when you're waiting to find out what's going to happen, whether or not you're going to be able to get travel insurance, which we were dealing with a little bit. Like all of these not knowings, it's like you're on tenterhooks all the time, and it becomes really stressful. And I mean, it's funny because I'm here. I haven't even really been able to read yet. We've been here 4 or 5 days, and it's like every day I can feel the tension dropping a little bit, but there's still things to deal with. It's not like you disconnect completely from your life, right? So I'm really grateful to be here because some of the some of the stuff, and also recognizing there's some things going on I just have no control over. And so letting go of the stuff we have no control over is really helpful, but it still matters at you, right? So it's always looking for these things and ways to sort of go, okay, not my job. Or sometimes when it is your job, then it's like, okay, it's my job, but it's not my job between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. when I get to sleep, right? So you sort of I don't know if you ever do this. You say, okay, I'll deal with this in the morning. Tonight I will deal with it in the morning. And sometimes I find if I write them down, okay, I have to, you should have seen me getting ready for this trip. Like I had lists and lists and lists. And it kept me sane because then I could go, no, no, no. That's on the list and I can deal with it tomorrow. We also had like crazy stuff happen. We had the person who was going to house sit for us couldn't do it at the last minute. We had the battery in my car die 3 days before we were leaving and lending it to my son. We had um, the hot water tank sprang a leak the morning we were leaving, but we
lovely.
discovered it. Can you believe that? I was like, ah. So anyway, it all worked out, and but the list kept having things added. And so folks, lists, don't do you do lists as well to help you
Oh my
organize
God.
stuff?
I wrote a list this morning because I have many, many things that I have to do today. So I'm going to apologize for constantly pushing up my glasses. I do need new glasses. These ones are sliding down my face. Um, yes, I'm an inveterate. A very pragmatic person, and an inveterate list maker. I
Yep.
also live with a structured day timer, which is bizarre to some people. But you're absolutely right, because once you take it and commit it to paper, you take it out of your brain.
Yep.
And when I journal at night, sometimes at the bottom of the page, I will do what is on my mind or what's bothering me, either title, and I will write them. And I often find those issues kind of resolve, in time, without me having to do anything, because you're absolutely right. We don't have control over everything. And then depending on your locus of control, some of us have a strong internal locus of control, some of us have an external locus of control. Internal locus of control means we feel responsible for absolutely everything. So, and the other point that you made that I was going to kind of jump on is redirecting your thoughts. And I have found that I'm really doing that a lot lately. Is every time I find myself going down some kind of a rabbity hole, I will say stop. And we used to do, and I think we may have mentioned this before on the podcast, but we used to do an exercise with a rubber band around our wrist. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
Every time you have a negative thought, you snap the rubber band. It works. It's painful, but it becomes less painful with time. It's a very good thing to do.
You can
Uh,
even do it. I haven't even found that even just doing it with verbally saying to myself, because I had started, I realized one day every time I was getting up, I was going, oh, and sitting up and going, oh. I was like, what the hell? You're not like some 120-year-old woman who needs to be groaning and moaning every time you get up. So I'd get up, and if I heard and I became aware of it, and I'd go, stop it. No, out loud. And it took me about a week actually of every time I'd catch myself, and then every time I'd get up silently or sit down silently, I go, good girl, that's the way. That's you go, woman. Oh,
yeah. So I think during times of stress, and the other thing too, I had really hoped, and I've said this to everybody, that January and February I'd kind of targeted as to be regenerating months,
yep.
restorative, hygge, all those things. Like I was envisioning cozy days and soup and tea and hanging out with family and friends and doing a lot of whatever. And I mean, that may not happen. Like again, I've got this Damocles sword hanging over my head. So self-care is really, really important. My number one method for dealing with stress is knitting. I knit pretty much 4 to 5 hours a day. I don't knit in the middle of the day. I knit first thing in the morning. I take a little knitting break in the afternoon, and then I usually knit in the evenings if I'm not busy for a couple of hours. Knitting and crafting with your hands is enormously helpful. And there's a book, and I'm trying to get my hands on it. It's by, I think, a Danish writer, and it's about crafting and care, because a lot of times, I think she said there's about 80,000 or 100 and 200,000 articles that you can, like medical articles on the benefits of working out and dealing with stress and mental health issues. But there's only 400 articles on crafting
Huh.
and with mental health and stress issues. And knitting basically saved my life. After Bob passed away,
Yeah.
and I mean, I was knitting before that, but and then and now I have a whole community of friends that I've created through knitting, some international friends. Plus, doing the test knitting has become another hobby for me.
Hmm.
It's like it's my version of knitting puzzles, so to speak.
Yep.
Um, but the act of crafting and crafting with your hands is enormously meditative, and it doesn't have to be knitting. It can be crocheting, it can be cross stitching, it can be uh, anything that you do with your hands that's repetitive is extremely good for you.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
my
I do needlepoint when um when I'm really stressed. I find if I can sit and not watch TV alone, but if I'm doing, the repetitiveness of it, um is really good. I'm just in my head, I'm hearing, the word for puzzle in Spanish translate to head breakers, which I
yeah,
think is really funny because
that is
it just sort
good.
of like it like relaxes you, and then the physical stuff too, like from well, singing and dancing are both really, really, really good for stress, and for making you feel better. So that's why choir is really good. It's the one I really miss my choir when I'm away, but singing is really important, and getting physical movement, whether you're dancing, whether you're working out, whether you're walking, all of these things are really good for helping to deal with stress.
Absolutely. Working out in particular, I usually work out 3 days a week and I do yoga one morning a week. But I sort of skipped this week for, well, not all of it. I did part of it for a variety of different reasons. And I really miss it. And there are some mornings when I'm thinking, I don't want to put my gym clothes on. And I make myself do it. And I never regret having done it after the fact. In particular times, if I miss it, fortunately, I can access recordings through the
Hmm.
people I work out with. I like kickboxing because that really gets the stress out is if you can do kickboxing.
Right, right,
Oh, very
right.
good. And of course, yoga is brilliant for that as well. But I find
Yoga's,
that yoga is more about. I find yoga is more mental than it is physical. For me, I don't. I mean, we do stretching and everything, but I don't. I don't get this. I get a different benefit than I do when I actually do high intensity workout and
yeah,
weights.
I can
Um,
see that. But I
yeah,
find that I love yoga because of the stretching and the
yeah.
breathing. And breathing is something we forget to breathe. When we're stressed, our breathing gets more and more shallow. So remembering with yoga to breathe, or with meditation, which we'll talk about in a second, but one trick with breathing. Okay, so here's a story. I was on the plane from Toronto to Cancun. I went up into the galley to use the washroom, and there was this guy standing there, and he was really, like, you could tell he was very agitated, and he looked really ill. And I'm like, I carry a medical kit with me, basically. And I said, do you need any Gravol or something? Like, and the stewardess there said, "Oh, that's really kind of you, but he's just a little." He said, "I'm really anxious. I'm so anxious. I don't know if I'm going to throw up or what's going to happen." And he was sitting in front of me
Ooh,
too. And it's like, what you don't want on a plane is someone having a panic attack, right? And
exactly.
of course, so he was okay. So he was standing with them, and they're like, okay. I said, well, then we had turbulence. And
Nice.
so he had to go into his seat, and he was like, and I said, you know, can is it okay if I touch you? And well, first of all, I showed him breathing in the cabin. I showed him breathing up front. So the inhala, hold, and then exhale through your mouth, right? Inhale through your nose, hold, exhale through your mouth. And then anyway, so he came and sat down, and I reached around because it was really bumpy. I reached around and I put my hand on his arm. And and you could feel, and every now and then he'd start to go like that, and I would just sort of rub his shoulder with my thumb, and he'd calm back in a little, and then he'd get a. So this went on for like 10 minutes.
Mm.
So there you go. And at the end of the flight, like the turbulence finally ended, he bolted back to the front. And then afterwards, when we were, deplaning, and he said, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can I carry your bags? Can I do anything?" It was so sweet. But it was
Um,
like, it's just like the human contact. So,
yeah.
or pet contact, right?
But breathing is so critical. And the
So
reason I
critical.
started taking yoga, I think it was 15 years ago when I started back, I had taken it when I was younger, was because I tend to be a shallow breather. And a shallow breather is part of an anxiety stress kind of a issue. And I really wanted to learn how to deep breathe
Yeah.
to relax again. And I will still do that. I will still pause and do and calm myself by breathing. Anytime I've had sort of a medical thing, like let's say if you've ever had an MRI, you know how, uncomfortable those are. I
Yeah.
found that really focusing on my breathing has been enormously helpful, and watching your body too, because you have a tendency to hold your body when you're stressed, and you have to remind yourself to let go of the hold and to do a good breath. Now, if I breathe too much and too rapidly, then I start to hyperventilate, and
Yeah.
that's
And
not cool.
putting your hand on your belly when you're doing that is really helpful because we don't really breathe into our belly, but we fill our lungs and our belly will like a baby, right? And you can see the belly going up and down. That's what we're aiming for too when
Yeah.
we're
And then the lion's breath is also really good. I'm not going to demonstrate it because it looks really weird.
oh
But
yeah, right. Well,
it's that's very helpful. But breathing is certainly really, really important. So if you find yourself like, winding yourself up, stop, try to let your mind go kind of clear and then just focus on breathing for a few minutes. And you will even change if you wear a Fitbit or a Apple Watch, you'll find that you can even see it, your heart rate will begin to change. So I think that is absolutely enormously um, important to do.
yeah. And if you're finding you're having trouble clearing your mind, think of something that you can focus on that you find calming, whether it is the face of your baby or someone you love, or whether it's a rose, or if it's an ocean, something a picture that you can focus on. If you can't make your mind just go clear, right?
Yeah, and see, part of the problem with memory and with thinking ahead, they're sort of, well, two kind of different things, is that you tend to, especially if you're, let's say, focusing on a bad past memory, you will start to go through the physical and mental sensations of whatever that past,
Yeah.
let's say it was a humiliating experience. Let's say you were walking across stage and you slipped and you fell on your butt, and if you want, you can, and that was probably humiliating. Probably nobody remembers but you. That never happened to me, but in any case, if you start to think about that and think about it again, you will start to feel that same anxiety, humiliation, and embarrassment that you did in that original experience. So trying to clear your mind is really important. And we are going to talk about meditation. We have talked about meditation
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
But you
Okay.
can't talk about it too many times because you know what? Somebody may not have listened to the other one, or they're, just it's good to remind, just breathe, be still and breathe.
Or use a meditation app like I do.
Hmm. Yep.
Take the 10 or 20 minutes a day to do it. And I frequently use it to help me fall asleep at night. Although I'm a really good sleeper, but sometimes again, the monkey mind, it doesn't want to settle down, especially when I've got a lot going on. So I find that listening to a meditation app, I never get to the end of it. In fact, rarely do I ever get to the end of it. I usually am conked out. But I also try and put it into my schedule. And I like to do it at 10 to 11 in the morning till 10 after 11, because there's something about if you take a 20-minute block at, let's say, 11 and it goes to like 11:20, you think, oh my God, that's like a whole half hour. But I find that it's a, it's a mental trick that 10
That's a
minutes,
good trick.
yeah, it's like, okay, well, it's only a few minutes past. But and if you got time to scroll Facebook or Instagram or play games on your phone, you've got time to do that 10 or 20 minutes. And people sometimes feel stupid about it. I don't. I am quite happy meditating. And like I said, it's also the helpful thing that gets me through any uncomfortable procedures, or even at the dentist, which is like really boring. They've always got these stupid game shows on the TV, and I don't want to watch that. I shut my eyes and I meditate, and I think that's just really helpful.
Huh, huh. It's interesting too. What are sometimes you don't realize how stressed you are, and then symptom will happen. Like I woke up the week before we were leaving, I woke up one night because my heart was going at like 120 beats a
Mhm.
minute. I was like, what the heck? So it was like, okay, I know this is stress. So lie in bed and do the deep breathing and listen to a meditation tape or three because it took me quite a while to calm it down. It was just monkey mind. And then I was reading something about so I want to investigate the vagus nerve more because it's really a fascinating thing. And I know in the past I've had issues because my jaw will click, it activates the vagal nerve, and then my stomach gets sick and I cough and choke. It's the weirdest thing. And then I found out what it was. But then I was reading the other day, and sometimes my hands will tremble, and it's like I noticed the other day I was picking up a cup of tea, and my hands were trembling, and I was like, "What the heck?" And then I was reading something, and apparently it can be because your vagus nerve is just overstimulated and needs to be relaxed.
So you
So
may want to check out Suki Baxter, Sukie Baxter. She has some wonderful 15-minute things on YouTube about vagus nerve
there you go.
and exercises that you can do with it. So she's a very good, I think she's a very good resource. And you would love her. You would love her.
Oh, I'll check her out. Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of older. She's got newer stuff, but this is probably going back just maybe pre-COVID, maybe 5 years ago. But and she's a young woman. I thought her stuff was fantastic. So I think yeah, anything you can do like that, that's a big heart rate there. That's big.
Well, it
Yeah.
was, and I know why. It was just like
Yeah.
there was pile up after pile up after pile up on the 2 or 3 previous days and the 2 or 3 previous weeks. And it was sort of like, okay, I know what this is. I know what it is. It used to happen to me more often when I was early perimenopausal.
Mm.
And so I've had all the heart, we did all the Holter monitors and all of that. And it was like, oh, okay, so it was hormonal, or it could be this was just stress. So,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
understand that because I have a saying, you don't trip over mountains, you trip over molehills. And what happens is, for me, I'm actually really good in big stress situations, but I find that accumulations of things going wrong will just send me around the buggy band. I will completely lose my mind. Like if I have a car breakdown, like there was a 24-hour or 48-hour period last April when my water heater went and then they replaced that because, well, what they did, the ceiling blew out in my library in the basement of my newly finished 1-year-old basement, lost the ceiling. So there was a $5,000 or $6,000 plumbing bill, or actually came to $8,000 because they had ripped the ceiling down. We had to throw out stuff. And then on top of that, my fence blew down. This is all within a 24-hour period. I had a beer keg explode in the basement in front of the bar. Like it was a whole bunch of stuff.
yeah,
And I was so, oh my God, I was so despondent. I couldn't even talk to people.
yeah,
That 48-hour period, I just thought, this is it. This is the end. I'm losing it. I've lost
yep,
my mind.
yep. It is. It's that one thing after another thing after another thing after another thing,
Exactly.
and then it's like, okay,
Yeah.
come on, let's get this in gear.
Yeah.
Let's do the things we need to do. So let's, spend
Yeah.
the
And
extra time.
exactly. And I had a mini moment like that this week. And then I wrote my stuff down, dealt with it. And then, of course, none of it really happened. So,
Yeah.
dealing, also too, it's really helpful when you are super stressed to talk it out with people who will listen and who might be helpful. And like friends and family, they can also make it worse, but sometimes you know who you can talk to. And I really, really think you have to be gentle with yourself. And like I was mentioning hygge earlier, which is the Danish word for kind of hunkering down, and
Yeah.
all the Scandinavian countries tend to do it. And there are things that you can do in that time frame. Like well, for me, there's knitting, there's reading. I got the fireplace going. Got the coffee and tea. Later on today, I'll light some candles. I'm not going anywhere, pouring myself a nice glass of wine. Those kinds of wonderful little things really, really help to deal with it. And if you're interested too, I started following a young guy on YouTube. He's out of Finland. I will actually put it into our group. Trying to think of his name, but he talks about the Scandinavians and the Nordic people and how they focus on there's more focus on life balance and self-care in that culture. And
Mm.
like for example, in Finland, I didn't know this, but you can only that you're only required to work a 40-hour work week. And after that 40 hours is done, your boss or coworkers are not allowed to call you or send you emails unless it's something critical.
Wow.
They have to leave you alone. So there's not, and it's considered to be absolutely rude to do that. So they do that. They spend, Nordic people say there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. They spend a lot of time outside, even in inclement weather. They do that. They spend a lot of time in silence. And this is true. And I know this because my family is Finnish. Finns don't indulge in a lot of small talk. In fact, they will sit there silently. Um, and there was a really funny picture that he showed about people lining up for a bus pre-COVID and then during COVID, and they were spaced out 4 or 5 feet apart for both pictures were identical. It was ridiculous. But that's what Finns, that's what, that's what they're like. They seem to be dour, but they're not really. It's just that they're quieter, they're more introspective, and they're less jibber jabbery and less busy, and they don't accumulate as much clutter and stuff like that. They lead often much more balanced lives, which is why you will see coming across a lot of memes is that the Nordic countries, Finland leading, are the happiest countries in the world because they have a stronger balance and stronger life balance and better coping mechanisms for dealing with stress.
And better healthcare and better leave and better there's right, like and yeah, they pay higher taxes, but they get so much back, right? And it really is a um not on top of your neighbor culture, but caring about each other.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Canada does rate pretty high up there
Yeah.
as well because we do have much more of yeah, countries where there is more of a value system of care and caring for others and putting that ahead. Uh, people tend to be happier and more peaceful there, and it's less competitive. So, and I remember when I was growing up, my mother used to say, like in Finland, they didn't care how much money you made. All they cared about was how many letters you had after your name, like whether you were a BA, a BS, yeah, a BSc, a PhD. That was more important. They didn't have huge displays of ostentation. That was considered to be in real poor taste. Not that it was a scarcity culture. It was that more of a balance. And what are the things that are
Right,
really,
right.
yeah.
Well, I
So
think balance, like we have to strive for balance in everything, right? Like there's a few tricks too. Like if you're feeling really stressed, declutter something. A closet, a drawer, a desktop, just declutter something. And that doesn't mean rearranging it. It means letting go of some stuff. And do that. Who is it? I know somebody is going to be, they've decided they're going to let go of one thing a day all year,
hmm.
which is okay. So, that's good. But to just we get so wrapped up. We get so wrapped up with stuff, and then, as we see around us more simplicity and calmness, it's mirrored in our minds as well.
Well, I think part of that harkens back to the fact that we are the baby boom generation. We were born to parents who went through a depression and a
Yep.
war where scarcity was a thing,
Yep.
um, and they tended to collect stuff and hang on to stuff. So, um, and I think that's where that comes from, that
Oh,
there's
for
value
sure.
in stuff. And I think also too, because we didn't grow up in a throwaway culture, well, that switched over with things like IKEA coming in, and throwaway clothing and so on and so forth. When you bought something, you invested in it.
Yeah.
And also there's a great deal of attachment to heritage stuff. Like, for example, I have got a grandfather clock in my living room here that's been in
Mhm.
my close to 200 years. So, that you're not going to that, there's that importance with that kind of heritage and history. And that was really big in my family. But I am doing that. I start every January, I start the big clean. I don't call it really a spring clean, but it is kind of a decluttering. And it's very helpful because I find things that I don't need. I have way too many clothes. I have way too many shoes, but I'm kind of like, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you know all about dragons. I'm a dragon hoarder.
Oh yeah.
But the last room that I will tackle will be my craft room because I've got, acres and acres of yarn, and that is really hard to get rid of.
There's one trick I've read. I don't remember who it was, and it was as you're cleaning out a closet, say, I am cleaning out the cupboards of my mind.
There you go. I also have a one in and one out. Like if I buy something
Mm.
new, pair of pants or a new top or whatever, then I get rid of another one. So that at least I'm not growing my my hoard. It's stable.
Stuff causes stress. You know what? It
Oh
and all
yeah.
and lack of stuff can cause stress too. But I mean, that's a different thing, right?
But you're absolutely right. Managing all that stuff is very, very stressful. So yeah, if we could get down to as clean as we can get to in terms of our accumulations, pare it down. I think it becomes easier and easier for you to cope with and deal with, which is why why I'm trying not to shop this year. I'm
Yeah,
just not shopping.
yeah.
And the other thing that I've been doing, I don't know if I told you this it's kind of funny. I think my friends think I'm crazy, but I also am keeping a record of the things I'm not buying. So,
Ah,
so things that I would normally press the button or go out and buy, I'm writing it down every week. I saved $700 this week because I didn't buy a new purse, I didn't buy yarn, and I didn't.
think of all the fellas that I haven't kissed. Right? It's like
Oh,
it's not only what I've done that's good, it's what I haven't done.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love it,
So
Leah.
So I'm really keeping track of the things that instead of the things I'm buying, the things I haven't bought, so that I realize that I am actually working with what I have and decluttering,
That's
decluttering
awesome.
myself and my mind.
Yeah,
Mhm.
cool. Any other things that you really love to do for de-stressing, or have we kind of covered most of them?
I think we pretty well covered them, but like I said, well, the only other thing which we kind of mentioned that I think is really important is get out in nature. I think that's just so
So
important.
much.
Yeah, and I'm really when Bob was alive, we had a week. I think I've mentioned this before. We had a weekend house, and because he was a professor, we were able to go there for 4 months in the summer, and from Friday mornings until Sunday nights. Sometimes we would get up early and leave on Sunday mornings. We used to call it stealing a day. Um, and we had no TV there, and well, we did have a TV, but just hooked up to a DVD player. So really, it was just radio and music. And
Yeah.
I realized, especially when I've been watching some of the videos of this young Finnish guy, how much I miss that time in nature because we had a 4-acre property, 850 feet on the river. I miss the river. I miss the snow. I miss the
Yeah.
quiet. I don't miss the mice, but miss everything else. And I I really realized how really Finnish I am when when I started to reflect on all the stuff that I missed from that. So that was our way. And the reason we bought the house was because combined we had 5 kids and we wanted to get away from the kids because they were always around. So boss said, let's get buy a weekend now so we get away from everybody. And we would go there. Sometimes I would we the only people we would see other than like going grocery shopping would be the two of us. We would be there for like 2 weeks on our own, just the two of us. You
Yeah.
know, I bring Bergen up there a lot but Bergen because she's nonverbal, it's quiet.
Yeah, exactly, right? Well, and
Hey,
it's true, like nature, oh, and it's the different kinds of nature. And it's funny because I live in the country normally. When I came here, it took me like 3 days to get used to there being people everywhere. Everywhere. There's people everywhere. Which is great. It's not like I don't like people, but then I have to find, okay, how do I get my quiet time? And right now my quiet time is at night up on the roof. There hasn't been anyone else there, touch wood. Um, and it's just been okay, quiet. There's still
so
people
like
on the street, but
no, I totally understand that, which is why I don't love why I could never live in a big city and why I hate Vegas. Like Las Vegas, literally at 2 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, it's the same in those casinos. And I hate that. I hate
yeah.
that big clot of people all the time. I can't deal with it. It makes me crazy.
I love
Um,
walking in nature. I love nature. I love the quiet and
me too.
solitude. Yeah, cool. Well, I keep doing those things that are good for us, Leah, and we'll hopefully become less stressed instead of more stressed.
And don't indulge in stress eating, stress shopping, stress smoking, stress recreational drugs. Those are not the things that are going to help you with the stress.
No.
You know, so being mindful, I think, is really the most important thing about it. Not to say don't have that glass of wine, let me tell you that.
But don't have like three bottles.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, have a cookie, but don't eat the whole box, like at once.
Well, and that's why I don't have boxes of cookies because that's what happens for me. It's something that I know what I can control and I can't control when I'm stressed. And when I'm
Yeah,
stressed, forget it. Like just can't be in the house or it will be. So I breathe instead and I don't have it there because I don't want to eat the box.
totally understand. I'm
Yeah.
exactly. And I have been and I know that I'm stressed because I'm craving carbs and I never crave carbs.
Right? It's like, oh, I just want to chew because I think we find that stress relieving for some reason. I don't know. But
Yeah. Anyhow.
yeah.
All right. I
All
think
right.
we much conquered this topic for today. So enjoy your time in Mexico, but you will be seeing more of Peggy in Mexico and me here with the changing seasons behind me.
And I will try and find a better place to do this so we don't have to have the weird blurry thing behind me with things that appear and disappear.
That's okay. It's magic.
It is magic. Okay, guys, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you on the next one. Okay, ciao for now.
Bye.
Bye.